Why did the rooster cross the road? Because he wanted to prove he wasn't a chicken. Welcome to the Big Comfy Chair. Today we're going to be taking a look at the brain and how the brain functions. And I want to start off by telling you a little story. The story begins with Susanna. She was hallucinating in the hospital. She wakes up to find that she's restrained. And there's a purple lady hovering over her. And Susanna becomes angry and paranoid, and she begins to pull the wires out of her head and notices that there's an orange band on her wrist that says flight risk. She felt like she was suffering from a demonic possession. And only a few days earlier, Susanna was a healthy, successful 24-year-old woman working at her dream job at the New York Post in New York City. And she woke up one day and felt like she had bites on her body, and she attributed those to bed bugs. The next day she was working and she was telling her friend about the bites. And the phone rang, and Susanna was horrified that her boss was on the other end because she had forgotten about a weekly meeting to pitch some stories. That night she went home, and in a fit of rage, she threw out a bunch of articles that she had been working on, just so she could be ready for the exterminator who was arriving the next day to get rid of those bed bugs. Several days later, Susanna was suddenly gripped with overwhelming jealousy and decided to read her boyfriend's emails. Later on, she felt incredibly guilty about all the paranoia that she was feeling. She went out with her boyfriend, and together they enjoyed an evening out for dinner and to a concert. But the next day she couldn't remember where she'd been or what she'd been doing. She decided that she was not feeling well, and so she went to the doctor. All the tests came back negative, but the doctor thought she maybe had mono. So she went home to her family. And while she was home with her family in Vermont, she became progressively worse. She was put on antipsychotic medication, and she went into seizures, and eventually ended up in the hospital. The next thing she knew, she was waking up. Several months had passed, and she was confused. And then she spent the next few weeks reconstructing what had happened, watching videos, interviewing people. And what had happened was she was the victim of a rare genetic disorder called anti-NMDA receptor autoimmune encephalitis. And she would have died if a doctor had not asked her to draw a clock face from memory. And Susanna had drawn the clock, but it was wrong. And that simple test told the doctor that her brain was inflamed and that serious interventions were needed. Susanna went on to write a book of her experience. And the name of the book was Brain on Fire. It's a wonderful description of how we sometimes forget that our mind is truly a wonderfully precise machine in the form of a balanced body-brain integration. Something we should always remember. You take care. Bye-bye.